This is Tuesdays with Artificial Intelligence, with your host, Peter Ward.
Welcome to Tuesdays with Artificial Intelligence. Got a great guest, Corinne Bassett. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a great day, and I'm actually super excited. This is our first podcast together.
It is indeed. So we bumped into each other quite a few times at the MVP Summit. What were your couple of that was in March. What were your few takeaways from that?
Oh gosh, it was just such an overwhelming kind of experience. You can not get to everything that you want to go to. Plus, you're trying to network. I'm pretty sure I was up at like 7 a.m. every morning and didn't go to bed until 11 o'clock at night, exchanging knowledge and information with people. Incredible.
Yeah, that's true. Like I quite like going to, even though I'm an MVP or co-pilot in Teams, I quite like going to the other sessions, like the OneNote and the Planner, just to see what those product teams are doing, and also like, okay, where's the overlap in terms of those products into the co-pilot world? But you're a bit of a loop person, okay? So I know your topic, the speaking topic is turning static elements into living workflows. Do you just want to before you jump into that, just tell me a bit about yourself, your Microsoft history, and who you work for.
Yeah, I have worked for Veeam for the last, it's a little over 9 years now. So it's been quite some time. I've specialized in the Microsoft 365 platform for most of that time. I kind of accelerated my career in my organization, getting really good at it. And I moved over to this from support to strategy position. And I got the strategy position on the premise that I got pretty good at Microsoft 365 PowerShells and configurations, especially in the base platform. And then I was introduced to this whole new world with like the MVP that I finally got last year, but I've been doing presentations since before COVID time frame.
So when you talk about strategy, is this sort of like applying the M365 technology stack into Veeam's customers? Or internally?
So a little bit of both. I use it a lot internally whenever I'm collaborating with teams or when my team needs to do something. I'm always a person like, well, Rin will definitely know how to do this the best way with the applications that we have available. And then I have this external presence where I get kind of information from Microsoft, the community, customers, R&D internally, and we make backup and data protection software. So whenever we have name changes or new features coming out, I'm the one that they kind of go to bring in as the technical expert in the room that can just kind of lay in and have a good conversation with the admin, but also have like that high level conversation with a C-level executive and translate between a lot of times.
Right. And for those who don't know, Veeam is, I work for Soho Dragon. We're not a Veeam partner, but we've experienced it with many of our clients. And you're probably, I would say, you're the Rolls Royce of the backup and restore, like in terms of backup. If you don't backup and restore, will get you, will keep you the unsung hero, but it could get you fired if you don't get it right. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I like to call those resume generating events. Especially in the
resume. I like that resume generating event. I do remember this is about 10 years ago. I was working with a client and they had Veeam as their backup and restore, and SharePoint was on-prem. The SharePoint went down, and within seconds they spun up the SharePoint environment in Veeam in basically a ghost environment where people could get their files while we rebuilt the server, which we said would take about 3 or 4 hours. And that kept and of course, it's always at the time where the CFO needs to get that sort of forecasting spreadsheet for the shareholders. And, I never seen anything like that. And I know I thought, wow, that's actually pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, that's actually one of our proprietary technology suites. I would say I'm a deeply technical person, and I would not have been able to work for Veeam as long as I have if it wasn't a solid, innovative kind of product line. And the thing that you're talking about, we literally do sort of like, think of a file share to an end machine where you can still access and use the files from that target location, but it still lives on the backup repositories. And that kind of gets you limping by until you can do the full restore into production environments. And I think I was kind of blown away when I first got introduced to that.
Right. Well, the other thing is, like as a SharePoint person, the backup and restore is for the IT department. It's the sysadmin guy who's not necessarily a SharePoint person. So there's an element where you're assuming it's all backing up SQL databases. You're assuming he's got it covered, and he's assuming you know, like SharePoint can pull this thing out the bag. Oh, you know, you can rebuild the service. The backup files are, the site collections are elsewhere, and they're not. And I just remember when this happened, and I knew that this is like mission critical, and you know, and I said this is going to take about 4 to 5 hours to build, thinking God knows what the response is going to be here. And he just said, no problem, we can just basically ghost this environment, okay, and we can that will hold the fort for the rest of the day. And I just thought, wow, that is pretty. I thought, wow, I didn't realize you could even do that. But I was totally impressed. Okay, so Microsoft Loop. Tell me a bit more about this. Why Loop's been around for about 4 or 5 years now? Would you say?
I think you're about spot on there. I would say as long as Loop's been around is not the same time frame as Loop has been useful.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely had that first iteration cycles.
What do you mean by that?
Components once.
You've been looping. What are you saying by that, actually?
So there are some limiting factors inside of Loop as itself, just because I will kind of call this right out. It can only work within your organization. And when it was first kind of released out there, everyone wanted to immediately share this out to external parties to be able to collaborate because it's a really cool tool. But we kind of had to reel back in the use cases to be within your organization, within your tenant. You can't even really have external users inside of this data. Mm-hmm. So this is really the premium internal communication and collaboration. And they've kind of started off with, okay, we give you this Word document style page that you can work with. Now we've got all these components and applications and being able to copy those across, which is really kind of set it into what I call it, a real product category versus a here's a cool new shiny feature category.
I always think where it works well in meetings and OneNote is really that's generally, I don't know where else it works, but that's just basically where I always see it working.
Yeah, so it actually works in a few different capacities. We have it in, of course, like you said, the SharePoint sites. We have it inside of Teams. We have it inside of meetings, but we can also share those same components inside of Outlook. And the key component here is that you could share it in 3 different team channels, a group chat, send it out in Outlook, and have this pinned somewhere inside of your OneNote. And no matter who updates it where, you're consistently getting the most recent data. So we have this problem, I think, between some people that are email people, some people that are message IM me. That's going to be my SLA high priority. But in reality, we kind of have to bridge that gap because my SLA on email might be 1 day when my chat might be 1 hour and someone else has the complete opposite. Having the same communication point in one area and a copy paste helps kind of get us synced faster.
So yeah, one of my challenges, even internally at Soho, and we are a Microsoft partner with MVPs, okay, is that someone will have a meeting and they will email out the agenda in a Word document with bullet points. And this absolutely does my head in because I'm saying no, because you want to have, if we use Loop, it's centralized and people can update it in real time. And it all gets magically done in real time so people can actually see the progress rather than having a shared Word file in some guy's OneDrive.
So you're lucky if it's a shared Word file.
Rather than an attachment. But this is where, this sort of like, there's a lot of parallel with what I've just said to AI, where a lot of people are applying to AI to existing processes where, wait a minute here, that process doesn't actually need to exist, where AI can just take care of it, like with Copilot and taking notes. That takes care of it. Instead of rescheduling a meeting when somebody can't attend it, why doesn't that person just follow the meeting? Okay, and then basically see the transcript. Okay, but no, somebody can't attend it. We can't get everybody on the meeting for this 1 week. We're just going to reschedule it. Okay, so it takes an adoption mindset here. I don't know if you find that as a challenge in the world of Veeam or with your co-workers or Veeamers.
I'm going to say that's a challenge no matter who you talk to in what industry. Adoption is one of the biggest failure points. It's actually something that I do some content on, and I think the statistics 70 to 80% of software adoption just fails across the board, like losing projects, losing money, people not using the product right, not understanding it. And I run into that a lot with not just Loop, but anything. I love Planner and being able to collaborate with teams and even on smaller projects, not bigger projects, because it gets people to the accountability for time frames. And then people are like, oh, I don't know. I'm kind of just used to setting my meetings up and following up with emails. And it's just like, we can do this better.
Okay, so why do you think 70% of projects fail?
I think 70% of projects fail because of lack of user training, lack of qualification before projects get launched, and lack of executive sponsorship. I have personally had projects fail due to lack of executive sponsorship. And it's where you go to like your managers and say, hey, I need you to tell people this is important because no one's going to listen to me. And that doesn't happen, or if it's not made really as a higher priority, then you're done.
Well,
Absolutely.
yes. When you talk about the executive sponsor, it's like the executives say, yeah, this is great for you guys, but not me. Okay. But this is very much an old wine in a new bottle here. Like I saw this with email, with SharePoint, everyone would do a SharePoint site, and then there'll be the executive corner part on the homepage, which would have one entry when the website was launched, and then that was it. Okay. So yes, there is a, but okay. So with Loop, okay, your title is turning static elements into living workflows. Go a little bit deeper into this about give me some use cases, please, on this.
So I'm going to say I was not an early adopter for Loop, but I've kind of progressively gotten there over time. Once kind of I found some things that were missing in my other applications. Perfect example is I am a huge OneNote fan. I absolutely love OneNote. It has everything that I've done at Veeam since not day one, since I switched over from Word documents about 6 months into my job to OneNote. Because I could search across everything. I created this massive knowledge base that was used for years after I left support. But OneNote is where notes go to die, unfortunately. They're not actively telling you something is going on, and I'm like, how do I get my call to action items to remind me? So I go back to that page, and I found that I could embed a Loop component inside of all of the OneNote pages to the same task list that links to a planner. And if you have something in a planner, it's automatically going to remind you the dates, times, components, whatever it is on your to-do list in your day. And you can get emails afterwards saying, hey, you have something overdue that you should probably go back and check. And that was my first like real aha moment, I think, with Loop.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. Like, because it's a little bit different to get your head around it. Once you get your head around it, it's brilliant. But that's the adoption part, which is, when something is a bit radical and weird, it does takes time for people to get their head around it. Like, I remember when someone was telling me about answering machines, and they said that this was in the 90s, where you would have an answering machine in the house, and someone said that the French Telecom are working on having an answering machine sort of like where the word virtual wasn't being used, where basically it was in some kind of data center. I thought, why on earth would you want to do that? Okay. But of course now nobody has an answering machine at home. Okay, it's all in some virtual data center. Okay, so it's like a lot of things. When it's new, it takes a bit of time to get their head around it, and it doesn't always work. I see Microsoft Lists have now been discontinued, and Sway has been discontinued as well.
So I don't know about the side, because I still am a huge Sway supporter and Sway fan.
Well, not anymore. You're not going to make.
I guess I like all the weird elements in Microsoft that no one uses and sees the true value in. But I'm hoping Loop kind of stays within the component way. And I found that the biggest adopters and easiest adopters of Loop are people that are the Confluence types. And it's a better Confluent component that actually has real relational databases. It has good built-in cards and charts, so you can do kind of like moving across your task list and all these other types of easy viewable elements. Like you can even copy and paste in a YouTube link and it shows up as an embedded video for you to consume, which if you've ever done that in Confluent, you know how painful that is.
You're talking about the knowledge management tool. Are you talking about Confluence, the knowledge management tool?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I've never. That does not ring a bell. About the YouTube, I'm familiar with that tool, but it's interesting you say that where the Confluence people, they're like the librarians. So if you look at a good SharePoint site, okay, normally it's somebody who's very organized. Okay, like a librarian. Like the librarian deals with the content. The books are in order. The books are missing. The books are up to date with that content. Like the worst thing about you can do with a SharePoint site is have IT manage it. Okay, because it will just get launched, and the only thing they will do is add users into the AD groups. You need to have that content management, which is that librarian type person or that knowledge manager of the content with documents, IDs and passwords in SharePoint. So it's managing that content and keeping it up to date and usable where it doesn't go to die. You're absolutely spot on the money on that.
So I think going into Loop a little bit more and circling about, there's really two ways to consume Loop, and I think that's where some of the confusion points come in. So there's the personal spaces, so like the My Workspaces inside of Loop, which is great for your own task and accountability, being able to add it into your own OneNote to keep tracks of things. But I think the other side is where it offers a greater value, really. The teams being able to do a meeting, every time you go to notes inside of a meeting, you may have already been using Loop without even realizing it because those are Loop components in there. Mm-hmm. As soon as you go down and you click on the follow-up task, that actually creates a Loop component which links to the Planner APIs, giving you the looped in. So you have follow-backs and follow-ups from there. And anytime that you go into a Loop page, you can actually create Inception is what I like to call it. So you have the main Loop page where you're writing documents. You might have this attached to a team channel. You can actually add loops inside of Loop, not to get you confused, but these components then could be shared out individually, and you can have 5 or 6 teams be able to funnel back information to one location without accessing each other's data, which is really cool.
So let me ask you this, okay? So I have a sales meeting which has got Loop, and I share that Loop with the marketing MP folks. If the marketing people don't have access to the sales meeting, what happens to the syncing and the access?
So Loop is actually independent. You can share it out from the components on the page, and you can either share it based off of individually adding people, or you can create kind of hot links to that page and share it out to a wider audience.
Okay, fair enough. Now you said there was like 3 levels of Loop. Is that what you just said?
I'd say there's probably 2. If you consider the Loop that you get with inside of meetings, that could be a 3rd one, but I consider that more of your just team and collaboration zones as a whole.
Right. Okay. So is that like a task and subtasks? Is that how you're referring this to?
Yeah. So inside of Loop, what they do is you actually add little components, and the components could be a voting table, it could be text boxes, it could be code. Like it gives you a nice pretty inserted box with code that'll actually format properly based off of like the type, so JSON looks right versus JavaScript. But another component that you can add in is a additional loop. So you kind of have this loop inside of a loop inception, which can have separate permissions across the board, and you send out that internal loop outside for additional collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So I that would go on to OneNote, and when you say Outlook, I've never seen this. Maybe I can put that loop in an email it to 5 people internally, and even though that email is the graveyard of information, that loop content will be updated. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
that's the really cool thing about especially the staticness of email itself. I can't tell you how many times I've used like the new search inside of Outlook and tried to go through 14 different emails to figure out which one was the latest reply with the most relevant information in the list. And this could just be one email that I'm able to find based off of a subject, and I just click on it and have the updated information.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, how does Loop integrate with, say, the Power Automate world?
So it actually differs a little on that side because it's more like a bucket of widgets is Loop. So you're able to use Power Automate to modify those individual widgets. As an example, to give a little bit of clarity, whenever you create a task list inside a Loop, it actually links to a planner. In that case, you would use the planner ID that gets generated to do some automations inside of Teams and Power Automate.
Right. Okay. Now, because one of the challenges we've had with Planner is that it works great internally, but when you're using third-party external people, it doesn't. It's because they need a Microsoft ID, and it just doesn't. It just causes too much confusion, basically problems.
Yeah, Microsoft's really good at building internal collaboration platforms.
Yes.
But there are some of those external zones that end up being a little bit more complicated. Generally, I use Power Automate anytime that we have to do an external collaboration point. And it could do something with if you're able to share out a collaborative zone, even if it, let's say, I don't want to call it a database, but Excel is an example. You could have Excel as your backend database to collaborate and have it come back and get status updates and have pivot tables associated with it.
This sounds a bit complicated, because we actually, I think every time I go to the MVP conference, I always think, wait, we need to be using this internally. And I think a couple of years ago, I said, we really got to be using Planner more because we actually use Monday internally for our external stuff. And the delivery team almost bloody had a riot on me actually because they just said, no, it's just not going to work. And they almost produced like a use case of why it wouldn't work as well on me. Okay, and so I agree. Internally, it's good. For the third parties, it's a little bit challenging to say the least.
Absolutely. I think the only product that I know of that is actually really good at external collaboration, or at least presenting of information, is Sway. And apparently we're deprecating Sway.
I want to just double check on what I just said there. Okay, hang on a second. Yep, it's I'm looking on Windows Central with that notice board of Microsoft. And Microsoft's 365 best kept secret is retiring from the desktop.
Oh, from the desktop. That's
okay. Yeah. Oh, okay, hang on. But yeah, okay. Sway used to be able to, they were going to use it on the web. Sway is free app. Okay, yeah, so good job I clarified that actually. Okay, Microsoft retire Clipchamp. Okay. All right, okay, yeah, so I'll just clarify that. Then yes, retiring from the desktop. But it's basically a web-based tool anyway, really, with a desktop component, because you need.
Oh yeah, it's like a one-page.
Yeah, you can't use it. You couldn't use it offline, basically.
No, and I think where Sway really shines is anytime that you have to get a quick document or quick information out to an external party. This is a great platform to do it. So examples is mom and pop shop talking about the menu for their food. You could create a public Sway page with a menu, and then they can update the Sway page on the back end anytime they need for when a food item changes or they get a summer menu item, whatever it is, something that may not change so often. And I use it for all of my external collaboration presentations. I put them up there in PDF form for the world. I put up their notes and links inside the videos and copies of the videos that are embedded from YouTube.
Oh, would you say Sway could almost like be a new blog platform, or not quite?
It would be like a one-off page blog platform. The only problem is it doesn't have you can't have different tabs the way that you would want to section them out. But like single one-page blogs, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Also, it's probably not going to have the SEO meta tags as well as a WordPress. That would be a bit of a challenge on that. But
you don't want traffic, it's fine.
If you what? You don't want traffic? Yeah. This is like, yeah, I can run the trains on time. We just don't stop at any stations. Yes. On that. Okay. Actually, that's not a bad idea with the Twai actually for external sharing, particularly for a kickoff meeting as well with a client. That would actually be quite useful. On that. Okay, so we talk about in terms of OneNote and Loop. One of the things you mentioned about OneNote is that it becomes like almost like, you sort of like you have a chest, you have stuff which you got to store it, and it goes in the bottom of the chest of drawers in your bedroom, and you just never look at it again. OneNote is a little bit like this, and you said, well, OneNote is almost like your graveyard of information. You didn't use that, but I think that's what you're implying. How does Loop solve that problem?
So you can use a Loop component, and what you do is you kind of you click a button to be able to share it, and then it creates a embedded link that you can put inside of your OneNote. Now, this embedded link could be an additional task list, it could be a voting table, whatever it is, but you can copy and paste that same link, which I do a task list, so it goes back to Planner, into each of my meeting notes,
right?
OneNote pages. So I was just doing like, let me make a table, 3 columns, date, notes, takeaways, or call to actions. But now I have on the right-hand side my meeting loop, so I just put it in there instead for all my takeaways instead of leaving it in OneNote for the brain to die. But it can give me a spark so I can come back to it at certain dates.
That I can see that work. That would work. Do you have any demos you can show us some use cases?
Yeah, I am actually working on my use case and demo page here shortly for coming on. I'll actually give you my link tree. It'll be up there as soon as it's live.
All right. Okay. Sounds
on a Sway page.
Oh, a Sway bar. I wouldn't expect anything less, actually, would I? Okay. But okay. So what? Okay. Loop's good for sharing. Are you using Loop for more personal tasks as well, rather than to do?
I use Loop in conjunction a lot for my presentations. I get all of these spark ideas, and I'm sure you do, whenever you're like, that would make a really good presentation, but you don't really have it fully fleshed out yet. I will actually go through and create different pages inside of Loop for the different session ideas. And every time I have more ideas, I go back and add more notes. I add tables, I add context around it, I add links, and then I'll actually use Copilot, which is embedded inside of Loop. So you can say, hey, help me figure out if I have enough information here for a 30-minute presentation or a workshop or whatever it might end up being. And it can help me get there. And then with the new frontier, you can actually link back to a Loop component or a Loop page and tell it, hey, based off of this Loop, make me a PowerPoint. Can you mock me up a PowerPoint for what it could look like?
That's very smart, actually. Yes. I quite like the idea of almost like I've got this topic here on a backup and restore, and I've got this things I can just throw in, and then basically that suddenly you've got like a lot of ingredients for a PowerPoint, and then you can basically ask Copilot to basically produce 6 slides for a 30-minute presentation.
Yep. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I can go back to a time before AI at this point. It has been game-changing, helping me get my ideas from like seeded form into let's make this useful and impactful form.
Well, this is the thing with AI. It's got to a stage where it says, give me what does this document say, and you do that, and you almost like, so you don't really need to read the 50-page document to do this, and then you kind of say, okay, how should I respond? What should be my 3 action points to do this? And Copilot is really just doing it's that co-worker second brain you're doing. And I think 15 years ago, people might have like said like they couldn't imagine a world without Google.
That's actually a really good analogy. I'm gonna have to steal that one. Like,
Well, when you're at college, when you're at college, I'm sure I'm a little older than you, I think, but you know, we just didn't have Google. Okay, the content was all in the library. Okay, which is always closed, sort of like after 3 PM. You know.
Yeah, I've heard it compared to like the .com boom, which I guess is the same avenue. Google was the real .com boom, I think, for collaboration and information. Otherwise, you had to know like the address and make sure you type in the first part of the HTTPS correctly.
Yes.
Or you're getting nowhere. We've kind of come a long way in that sense. And all of these applications, it feels like we're just adopting new things. And we do have to think about whether or not it is actually impactful, or could it be impactful, or should someone else take the life energy to see if it can be.
What do you mean?
And I don't know. Microsoft makes it sometimes kind of hard on us constantly changing.
Well, if you look at, so we say, technology innovation over the years, is like quite often the 800-pound gorilla does not actually win the next wave of technology. So when mainframes are out, you would have thought IBM would have won the PC battle, but it was Microsoft. Then when the internet was invented, you would have thought Microsoft would have got the browser, would have won the browser wars, but no, it was actually Google. With cell phones, you would have thought perhaps Microsoft, but it was actually Apple and Samsung and Google. And now, okay, and BlackBerry was out, couldn't keep up. Okay, and then now we're here in this next wave of AI, and you've got Copilot, Anthropic, OpenAI, GenSpark, and ChatGPT, and Microsoft is quite often, when I'm reading the articles and looking at the Microsoft Copilot, is a little bit sometimes just left off the chart, even though it's not rock and roll, but it seems to be left off the chart a bit here.
Yeah, actually, we were just talking about this last week at the conference in Orlando, the Microsoft 365 event. They had a keynote that covered a lot of this.
People speaking my content again, are they? Yeah.
Jeff came out on stage fully admitting that they may have not done it right to start with, but they got it out there, they iterated it, and now they're iterating it faster. And they're expanding their base algorithms by using, say, Claude. And I would say the difference between, if you asked me a year ago at this time, what was something I could really use in my job versus what I can actually use today, it is drastically different. The Frontier project was also a huge kind of, I think, bump in this, because everyone went into Copilot. And what's the first thing that maybe the second thing that you try to do? Make me a PowerPoint. And then it's, can you make me a PowerPoint in VS Code? Because it doesn't apparently work to make me a graphical. And then we got there where it's these blank white presentations. We're finally to the point where I can say, I want this theme, I want this context, I want it backed on this information and grounded over here, and gather your extra information from this URL. And it is absolutely incredible making charts that are accurate. The letters, like words, have been so hard for so long. I wasn't sure it was ever going to get there. And I think we're getting over the bubble, and not just like an AI bubble, but the bubble of getting good and seeing the results of all of this trial and error.
Well, you're also seeing that the adoption, like you said, with the internet, it was a bit geeky, where you need to know that sort of the letters of the URL, whatever. You're not going to get sort of like someone in accounts doing that. Well, now a Copilot, you can now start saying, hang on a minute, well, I can do a PowerPoint instantly, or pretty much instantly. Okay, without something which would take an hour, it's now taking minutes to do with the themes, and I don't need to think about it. I don't need to spend 2 days getting skilled up on this whole thing to produce a good do that. And the other thing as well, which I use Copilot a lot, is, can you, I'm writing this, I've written this proposal or this document. Please review this document and identify any symbolic language, buzzwords, or cliches. Okay, so like if I said to you, okay, we need to have a strategy session with Veeam. What does that really mean? Okay, it can mean anything. Okay, and like particularly when you work when a lot of your co-workers are MBA types. They seem to absolutely love putting buzzwords and corporate jargon and absolutely any form of communication. And it's like, by just doing that, I will often reply to people saying, please resend me this document and put this through Copilot, removing all symbolic language, corporate jargon, and buzzwords. Okay, then I can actually answer correctly. Okay, and that actually helps with the communication on that, without even me reading the document.
I think that what you're talking about right there, I need a disclaimer at the bottom of my email address. Do not send me something that hasn't been put through Copilot or AI to remove internal jargon, acronyms, or anything, because I can't tell you how many times I've just replied to an email saying, hey, do you mean by this 3-letter acronym? Because I'm funding a cleaning company in Southeast Asia that does this. That's the name of their soap. This point.
Well, I've actually thought on my email signature writing, this was handwritten, not with Copilot. Actually, I thought I did the opposite, actually.
We are getting better about the disclaimers too. I remember when we first were dealing with Copilot and AI, and all these things are kind of going out their rogue, and no one had any type of accountability for what was being written or communicated. Now we get those little, like, this was created with Copilot. I have a new Copilot initiated flow inside of my email, and I asked it to automatically accept every calendar invite that does not conflict with a current calendar and is respective of my working hours. And my boss sends me an email, or a message a couple hours later, like, hey, so your Copilot accepted this meeting for you. I hope you know. Which is kind of cool. That
actually is something I can do. That's another thing that does my head in. People schedule meetings with me, and I've already got another meeting. And in Outlook, it has that feature. It says these people are not available. And I still get the invites.
Yeah, that one's a hard one. I think that's just training. People just kind of go for it and they forget, or they haven't been trained on just the little schedule button. And I will admit, the schedule button can be a little scary when you first look at it. It's not as user-friendly as I think I would like it. Just based off of, like, when you're moving things over, you're not quite sure what day you're on, and then how do you get back to your message chat to, like, fill out your agenda or whatever. So I will give people a slight pass, but it does kind of pop up there at the top saying, hey, these people are not available. Are you sure you want to schedule this at this time?
That is very true. Going back to Loop, okay, what would you say the 3 features you would like to see in Loop that are not there?
That are not there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You've just given me like a keys to the kingdom kind of perspective here.
Yeah. Or what? Yeah. Give me 2 then.
I would like to see real embedded components with, like, iframes, like they do in SharePoint. Now, SharePoint is kind of hit or miss. We all know, of course, for accepting those. That would be one. And then, maybe like a whiteboard. I want to be able to put a drawing in there and have a shared whiteboard that I can work with as a component.
Well, because you've already got whiteboard already in Teams. Okay. And actually, whiteboard is a separate product as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
But I want to put it where the information is, because if you've ever used a whiteboard, it's like, okay, now where did this go? It's in that meeting we had 3 weeks ago because no one made a reoccurring agenda item. So I would love to see whiteboard be able to be a component that's grounded on the loop, and then you can add the whiteboard to the meeting if needed. Or if you're adding the loop component to the meeting, the whiteboard should already be there.
Yeah, that would be actually nice on the visual thing. Yes, that would be quite good. The other thing as well, like I don't know if you can do this, like one of the things that I do, when you're assigning tasks to people, do you record little short videos in Teams?
I don't.
So,
or do you mean?
Okay, so I'm chatting with you, okay, and you're offline, okay, and I got some feedback on that document you sent me. In Teams, I can record a video for, like, I think 2 minutes and say, like, thanks for the document. This is my feedback, and I'm gonna share my screen. Blah 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 blah, and then send it to you. And so instead of me scheduling a meeting with you or whatever, you can actually get that, and then you've seen the feedback, and instead of me writing it up in 30 seconds, I've given you my feedback. And that's
really cool. I always use Clipchamp. I go into the record now with Clipchamp.
Clipchamp is in Teams as well. Okay, Clipchamp is in Teams. Okay, it's just like it's just a video part in Teams.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to play with that now. I want to be able to like use my face and make eye contact with someone when they've given me something that is less than optimal along the way.
Yes. So yeah. Yeah. So you can do that's something. And that's just brilliant to do that. Okay. That's again. It says record video clip. I'm looking at right now. You see that? No, I'm not sharing my screen, but if you look in your Teams, I'm sure I have a coworker. It says record video clip, and you can click there.
Oh wow!
And
yeah, I'm gonna have to play at that.
And what's really good, particularly if you're dealing with people in different time zones or stuck in meetings. Okay, and also I might even say like, I know we've got the meeting on Thursday. Can everybody just do this, this, and this, and this? And I'm on that. So this again, it makes that flow much more continuous.
I'm all about creating more cohesion because I think that's our biggest problem is I lose information daily. Like if I'm not putting it down, if I'm not writing it down, my goldfish brain has lost it 15 minutes after I've said it. And I have notebooks all over my desk here, which is just like OneNote. It's where all my notes go to die and being able to recall those back. And search is getting better. Search is getting better across platform inside of Copilot for sure.
Yeah, well, the other thing, like I know there's been numerous things about the Copilot search. It doesn't, it misses bits out, and there's a reason for that. I think Andrew Connell had a good video on this, on why that was happening. But Delve, I thought was brilliant, and they got rid of that.
Delve was my favorite secret weapon because everyone forgot about it. And anytime someone came to me and they asked like, hey, I want a PowerPoint for this or data on this. And I would just end up being the go-to person because I just go into Delve and find the person that is an owner of that part and team and organization. I wouldn't even have to message them. I'd just go steal all of their files that are public facing to company facing. Instead of acting like, look at me being this awesome person that has the answer to everything. And now when they deprecate it, I'm like, I've lost my power.
I know. Well, I think obviously it's the whole challenge for Microsoft is that there's always like about 6 different ways to do the same thing. So it's almost like you got search, SharePoint search, Bing search, which could link into SharePoint, and then the Copilot thing. And of course, if you get rid of Delve, it forces people onto the Copilot world a bit more.
Yeah, and it really wasn't a good replacement to start with. I will admit that. But the more that they've kind of especially gone into the frontier section, being able to see organization flows, I think that has kind of been the replacement almost to Delve because I get information about people in the organization, what they do, who has the most content on what kind of task or operation, and then be able to go that way. Because things are always changing, especially when you're as a larger company. Keeping track of just who's in charge of your sector of finance can sometimes be mind-numbing.
Yep. Okay. What else? Well, how many employees does Veeam have?
We're over 5,000 now. And actually, there's this really cool feature. I didn't know if you know inside of Teams, you can click on the organization and view. And if you path up to the owner of the organization, you can actually see how many people that report to them all the way up through the trees. And actually, we have over 7,000 people now here at Veeam.
Yes, I am aware of that. Yeah, you click on someone's contact and it will show the reporting team. Yeah, people reporting to people.
I use it to creep on who's got the bigger organization in the company now. It also shows differences between who is a full-time employee and who is a temporary employee up that tree as well. And it's been kind of like, oh, you have so many direct reports, but most of them are not part of Veeam. They're part of an external entity.
The nice thing about that, it also shows these people, this person works with so-and-so as well. Okay, so, and you can see the org chart there as well. Oh, that looks interesting on that.
Yep. Right. And I think that's really kind of a piecemeal that came from Delve. Like everything that's my favorite part of Delve was a lot of the favorite parts of all of these application reiterations inside of Teams and Copilot and agents and whatever else.
Yeah, that's probably very true on that front. All right, we're almost coming up to the hour. Are you a bit of a blogger? You have a bit of a blog or not?
I have a link tree that links to Sway pages, which are kind of my blogs, and sometimes a Substack here or there.
Okay, do you want to stick that in the chat, and we can share that with the on our social
Absolutely,
media?
I'll get that to you.
Do that. Okay, fantastic. Okay, Corinne, I know you were in Florida at the conference last week, so you probably need a week to recover from now, I suspect.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all the
Still
good stuff
recovering.
on that. How many conferences do you go to a year?
I am gone 50 to 65% of my year on the road.
Wow. Okay. Where are you in? Are you going to the conference the Collab conference in New York this year?
I'd have to kind of maybe ask you or someone else. I applied. We'll see if I get in.
All right. Okay. I'm not promising. Okay. What was the topic? Just out of interest. Like I said, we don't choose by names. But if you can tell me the topic, I might be able to say something.
There might have been a loop component in there and a OneDrive as well in the submissions.
Right. Okay, that sounds good. All right, I will hopefully see you in July and August. July in the New York conference.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. We should do this again sometime.
Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.